In the middle of a very fancy restaurant, something mean and ugly happened. A very rich white man began speaking Latin. Latin is a very old language that most people do not know anymore. The man believed that no server in the restaurant could understand it. He smiled to himself because he thought he was being clever. He used the old language to say cruel things about a black waitress who was standing right in front of him. In Latin, he called her a slave. He laughed softly after saying it. He enjoyed the sound of the words. He enjoyed believing that she was too uneducated to understand him. To him, it was just a joke. A game. A way to show his power and remind everyone that he thought he was better than them. But what he did not know was that the woman understood every word. When she lifted her head and answered him in perfect Latin, the entire restaurant went silent. Forks stopped moving. Glasses stopped clinking. Even the air felt frozen. Before we talk about what she said, we need to go back to the beginning of the night. The Gilded Lily was not a normal restaurant. It was located in the heart of New York City, surrounded by tall buildings and bright lights. Only very rich people ate there. People who had more money than most families could earn in many years. The walls were decorated with art. Big crystal lights hung from the ceiling and sparkled like stars. The tables were covered in white cloths that were always clean and smooth. Soft music played in the background. The sound of silver forks touching fine plates filled the room. Everything about the restaurant whispered the same message. This place was for important people. Eliana Morrow worked there as a waitress. She was 27 years old, but life had already taught her many hard lessons. She knew how to move quietly. She knew how to smile politely. She knew how to make herself small so customers would not notice her too much. Her uniform was always neat. Her hair was pulled back. Her smile was ready whenever someone looked at her. But inside, she kept her true self hidden, locked away where rude words could not reach it. Tonight felt like every other busy Saturday. Every table was full. Rich men and women laughed loudly. Bottles of expensive wine were opened without a second thought. Some people spent more money on one dinner than Eliana earned in an entire week. Eliana had been awake since very early that morning. She had gone to school first, sitting through long classes, listening carefully even though she was tired. After that, she rushed across the city to get to work on time. Her feet hurt from standing all day. Her eyes burned from being awake too long. But she kept going. She had no choice. Her mother was sick and the hospital bills kept growing. She also had a big paper due for school, and the deadline was getting closer every day. Giving up was not an option. During a short break, Eliana went into the small locker room for employees. It was quiet there. She opened her locker and took out an old book. The book was written in Latin. The pages were yellow and soft from being read so many times. Eliana sat down and opened it carefully. She read silently, moving her lips as she translated the words in her mind. This book was her secret. When she read Latin, she felt safe. In this world, words mattered more than money. Knowledge mattered more than power. No one could take that away from her. Another waitress named Navarra poked her head into the room. "Why do you always read those strange books?" Navarra asked with a laugh. "What even is that? Is it some kind of secret code?" Eliana smiled gently. She closed the book and put it back into her locker. "Something like that," she said. Her break was over. Eliana returned to the restaurant floor just in time to see a familiar guest being seated. Dr. Calantha Vered was an older woman who came to the Gilded Lily often. She always sat at the same table by the window, where the light was good for reading. She was quiet and kind, and she treated the staff with respect. That night, Dr. Vered carried a leather-covered book. The title on the spine was written in Latin. Eliana brought her usual order without being asked: a glass of white wine and a small plate of olives. Dr. Vered looked up and smiled at Eliana. It was a warm smile, the kind that made Eliana feel seen. "You look tired tonight," the woman said softly. "Please take care of yourself." Eliana felt a small warmth in her chest. "Thank you," Eliana replied. Dr. Vered watched Eliana walk away, her eyes thoughtful and knowing. Then the front door opened loudly. The sound cut through the restaurant like a sharp noise. A man named Alistair Draven walked in as if he owned the place. His suit was perfectly tailored. His shoes shined. A gold watch sparkled on his wrist every time he moved. Beside him walked a woman named Evantha. She was tall and beautiful, wearing a dress that caught everyone's attention. The restaurant manager hurried toward them, smiling nervously. Alistair pointed to the best table in the restaurant, a table that was already taken by another couple celebrating a special night. Within minutes, that couple was moved somewhere else with apologies and free champagne. Alistair took off his jacket slowly, making sure everyone could see the expensive label. He hung it carefully on a hook like it was more important than the people around him. The manager called Aliana over quietly. "You'll be serving Mr. Draven tonight," he said. "Be careful." Aliana understood what that meant. "Be patient. Be quiet. Do not argue." Aliana walked to the table and smiled. "Good evening. Welcome. My name is Aliana. May I get you something to drink?" Alistair did not look at her at first. He waved his hand like she was a fly. "I hope they hire people here who can read," he said to Eventha. Eventha laughed, but her laugh sounded forced. Aliana ignored the comment and brought the wine exactly as trained. She poured it perfectly. Alistair watched closely, hoping she would make a mistake. After she finished, he pulled out a black credit card and held it up. "Do you know what this is?" he asked. Aliana answered calmly. "Your credit card, sir." Alistair laughed loudly. "This is a very special card," he said. "You probably don't know how much money I can spend with it." Eventha laughed again, but her smile faded quickly. Alistair placed the card back in his jacket pocket. Aliana noticed everything. Across the room, Dr. Vered noticed too. The insults continued. The napkin was wrong. The food was not perfect. The service was slow, even though it was not. Each comment was meant to make Aliana feel small. After drinking more wine, Alistair became louder. He started bragging about his life. He talked about fancy schools and trips to Europe. He talked about learning Latin and being smarter than others. Then he looked at Aliana. A cruel smile appeared on his face. "Watch this," he whispered to Eventha. He snapped his fingers. "You, come here." Aliana walked toward the table, calm and quiet. Alistair leaned back and began speaking in Latin. He used the ancient words to insult her. He called her a slave. He laughed softly as he spoke, enjoying himself. Aliana understood every word. She stood still. She took a breath. Then she lifted her chin, and she answered him in flawless Latin. Her voice was calm, clear, strong. The words she spoke meant this. A slave is one who is ruled by ignorance. A free person is ruled by knowledge. The restaurant went completely silent. Alistair's face turned pale. Dr. Vered smiled. And for the first time that night, Aliana was no longer invisible. Alistair leaned back in his chair, looking very comfortable, and spoke slowly, so everyone in the quiet restaurant could hear him. Every word he said was in Latin, which most people could not understand. He made sure every word sounded sharp and mean. "Hank and Silum Nigram Spectre Nihil, look at this black servant. She understands nothing. Slaves are always slaves," he said, laughing. He thought he was very clever, and he enjoyed hearing the sound of his own voice. Eventha, sitting across from him, smiled politely, thinking he was funny. But Aliana, the waitress, felt something heavy land in her stomach. Her hands shook, and she felt very sick. She understood every single word he said. She understood that he was trying to hurt her with words. She understood the rudeness and the meanness. From across the room, Dr. Calantha Vered, who had been reading quietly, looked up. She had seen the whole thing. She lowered her book and stared at the scene in front of her, her eyes serious and focused. Alistair continued, ordering his dessert in long and complicated Latin sentences. He tried to use the biggest, most impressive words he could think of. But he was not just trying to sound smart. He was trying to make Aliana feel small, like she had no value at all. Other people in the restaurant shifted in their seats. Some looked away because they felt uncomfortable. Some whispered to each other quietly. No one spoke up to tell Alistair to stop. Aliana stood frozen. She felt trapped. She had two choices. The first choice was to stay quiet. She could swallow her feelings, hide her pain, and let Alistair humiliate her. If she stayed quiet, she could keep her job. That job helped her pay her mother's hospital bills and kept their apartment warm and bright. The second choice was to speak up, to stand up for herself, to tell Alistair that he was wrong and that she would not let him bully her. But it was very scary. She had seen people punished for standing up to rich, powerful people before. Aliana remembered her mother's words from when she was little. "Baby girl, you have to be twice as strong just to be treated half as well. But never let anyone make you forget who you are." Alistair was watching Aliana carefully. He wanted her to look embarrassed or scared. He wanted her to lower her head and walk away. He thought she would be just another servant he could insult and laugh at. Aliana took a deep breath. She thought about her mother, lying in the hospital, connected to tubes and machines, fighting to stay alive. She thought about her thesis, the big school project she had worked on for years. She thought about all the sacrifices she had made. And then she thought about her pride, the one thing she had promised herself she would never give away. She lifted her chin. She looked Alistair straight in the eyes. The whole restaurant seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see what she would do. Then Aliana spoke. Her voice cut through the quiet like a sharp knife. She spoke in Latin, just like Alistair had, but her words were perfect. Her pronunciation was clear, and her grammar was exactly right. She sounded confident and smart. Alistair's words now sounded silly and childish compared to hers. She said, "He who looks down on servants is really a slave to his own pride." Alistair's smile froze on his face. His hand, holding his wine glass, stopped in the air. He had never been spoken to like this before, not by anyone. Aliana didn't stop. She kept talking in Latin. Her eyes never left his. She explained that Latin was not just a fancy way to sound smart. It was a language that could teach wisdom, not a language to hurt other people. People in the restaurant started whispering. They were surprised and amazed. A man near the window laughed quietly, not because he thought it was funny, but because he was amazed at how smart Aliana was. Aliana tilted her head slightly and stayed calm. She even corrected one of Alistair's Latin mistakes, politely but clearly. She explained that he had used the wrong word in one place. Alistair's face turned bright red with anger. Evan stared at Aliana in shock. She had never noticed before how smart Aliana was. For the first time, she did not see Aliana as just a waitress. She saw her as a person who had done something incredible. Aliana allowed herself the smallest smile. She said, "Would you like to keep ordering in Latin, sir? Or maybe I can use ancient Greek. Or perhaps English is easier for everyone." From across the room, Dr. Vered smiled quietly. It was a small smile, the kind smart people give when they see someone truly talented. The restaurant was silent for 3 long seconds. Then, a table near the back started clapping. An older man raised his glass to Aliana. A woman sitting alone smiled behind her hand. The other diners whispered and smiled. Alistair had never been embarrassed in his life. He grew up rich, and people always obeyed him because of his money and name. He had never been corrected by a servant before. He had never been made to look foolish in public. Now he felt a volcano of anger rise inside him. "How dare you speak to me like that?" he shouted. He gripped the table so hard that his knuckles turned white. Aliana stayed calm. She said politely, "I'm sorry, sir. I only answered in the language you used." Alistair looked around the room. People were smiling, whispering, and even taking out their phones to record. His carefully built image of being cultured, smart, and powerful was falling apart. Evan touched his arm gently. "Maybe we should just go," she said softly. But Alistair pushed her hand away. "Don't touch me," he snapped. Evan flinched. She looked at him differently now. She realized he was not the perfect, admirable man she had thought he was. She saw him as angry, cruel, and small. Alistair's mind raced. He could not leave like this. He could not let Aliana make him look foolish in front of everyone. He needed a plan to get out of this. Then he pretended to notice something missing. He checked his jacket and shouted, "My credit card! It's gone! You stole it!" pointing directly at Aliana. Aliana was shocked. She took an involuntary step backward. "What?" she asked, her voice trembling. Alistair stood up, scraping his chair loudly against the floor. "Everyone heard me. She had access to my jacket, and now my card is missing. A card worth over $100,000. The restaurant's mood changed instantly. People went from amused and impressed to suspicious and worried. Aliana could feel dozens of eyes on her. Some were judging her unfairly, assuming she must be guilty because of her skin color and her position as a waitress. Joran Kale, one of the restaurant workers, rushed over. He looked pale and anxious. "Mr. Draven, this is a mistake. Aliana is one of our best employees. She would never steal anything." Alistair waved him away. "Are you calling me a liar? Do you know who I am? One phone call from me, and she's out of a job." Joran's face showed the struggle inside him. He wanted to do the right thing. He knew Aliana was innocent, but he was afraid of losing his job. "Fear one," he said quietly to Aliana. "Maybe you should just cooperate to clear this up." Aliana felt betrayed and hurt. She had worked at that restaurant for 3 years. She had always done her job perfectly. She had covered extra shifts and gone above and beyond for customers who didn't even know her name. And now, when she needed help most, the person who should protect her could not even look at her. She looked around. More people had taken out their phones. Lights were blinking, recording everything. By tomorrow, this moment could be on the internet. People who did not know her name, her story, or her truth might share it. They might judge her as a criminal just because Alistair said so. Alistair pressed harder. Well, what are you waiting for? Check her pockets. Check the employee area. Check anything you want. Unless she has something to hide. Aliana's mind raced. She had no good choice. If she refused to be searched, everyone would think she was guilty. If she allowed them to search, it would feel like she was giving up her dignity. Either way, Alistair was trying to win. Aliana thought about her mother lying in the hospital, connected to tubes and machines. She thought about the bills piling up on the nightstand. She thought about her thesis, all the research she had done for years. She thought about her father, who had died too soon, working so hard to give her opportunities he never had. What would he think if he could see her now, standing in a fancy restaurant, being accused unfairly by a rich man? The memories of her life hit her again and again. She remembered teachers assuming she had cheated because her essays were too well written. She remembered store security guards following her in stores. She remembered people clutching their purses tighter when she walked by. All those small humiliations added up to this moment. Aliana's eyes burned, but she refused to cry. She would not give Alistair or anyone else that satisfaction. She remembered her mother's words again. Never let anyone make you forget who you are. She took a deep breath and prepared herself. Aliana looked around at the other diners. Their expressions were full of curiosity, confusion, and some even fear. She thought about how strong she needed to be right now. She needed to stay calm. She needed to protect herself, her dignity, and her future. She turned her gaze back to Alistair. He was fuming, his face red, his hands shaking slightly with anger. He had tried to humiliate her, but now she would not let him win. She would not allow him to make her feel small. Aliana slowly straightened her posture, standing as tall as she could. She would face this challenge. She would not give in to fear, even if it meant standing against a man who had everything: money, power, and influence. Her mind was clear. She thought about everything she had worked for. She thought about all the sacrifices she had made to get this far. And she thought about her mother, her father, and all the people who had believed in her. Aliana's heart pounded in her chest, but she stayed calm. She would respond carefully, wisely, and bravely. She would not let Alistair control this situation any longer. She would show him, and everyone watching, that she was strong, intelligent, and brave. Evan stood up slowly. Her face looked worried. Her bright, playful expression from a few minutes ago was completely gone. She was serious now, and the fun, light mood that had been in the room had disappeared. Her eyes searched Alistair's face carefully, looking for some sign that he might be wrong. "Alistair, are you sure about this?" she asked softly. "Maybe the car just fell somewhere. Maybe you left it in the car. Maybe it isn't gone at all." Alistair's eyes flashed with anger. He turned to her sharply. "Whose side are you on? Do you think I could be wrong? I know what happened. I know what I saw." His voice was loud, and his words sounded like they could cut through the room like a knife. Evan stepped back a little, making herself smaller. She could feel the tension in the room, and it made her chest tighten. "I'm just saying this feels wrong," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "She's standing right there. She hasn't tried to run away. She hasn't done anything except embarrass you. And now suddenly you say she's a thief." For a moment, Alistair's eyes looked dangerous, like a wild animal ready to attack. But then he forced himself to calm down. He smoothed his face back into a mask of fake anger and self-righteousness. "Evan the darling," he said, his voice dripping with false charm, "you're too trusting. It's one of your most charming qualities, but in this case, it's completely misguided. You should know better." He turned to Joran, who was standing near the table, looking nervous. "I want her searched immediately," Alistair said sharply. "And I want the police called now." Joran's hands shook as he pulled out his phone. He looked at Alistair, then back at Aliana. Aliana could see the fear in his eyes. She watched him dial the numbers, feeling her stomach twist into knots with each passing second. Her future, which had seemed stable and bright, now felt like it was falling apart. "Please," Aliana said softly, almost in a whisper. "I didn't take anything. I swear to you, I didn't take anything." No one answered her. No one looked at her. She felt completely alone, even though the room was full of people. The weight of everyone's eyes on her felt like heavy stones pressing on her chest. It was hard to breathe. 3 years of working perfectly. 3 years of always following the rules. 3 years of being twice as good just to be considered half as worthy. And now it seemed none of it mattered. None of it had ever mattered. She closed her eyes and braced herself for the worst. She was ready to be dragged away, accused of something she didn't do, punished, humiliated. Then, from the corner of the restaurant came a sharp sound. A glass hit a table with a loud, clear clink. Everyone turned toward the noise. "I think," said a calm, strong voice, "we need to stop pretending right now." Eliana opened her eyes in surprise. Dr. Calantha Vered was standing up from a corner table. She moved slowly, gracefully, like someone who had spent her whole life being respected without ever having to yell. Her presence made everyone else in the room seem smaller. Alistair turned toward her, his face full of contempt. "And who exactly are you?" he demanded. "This is a private matter. You have no business here." Dr. Vered smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Her smile was sharp and controlled like the edge of a knife. "My name is Calantha Vered," she said clearly. "I am a retired professor of classical history and ancient languages at Columbia University. And I have been watching everything that happened tonight, from the very beginning." She stopped a few feet away from Alistair. Her eyes locked on him with such intensity that he stepped back without thinking. "What I have seen tonight," she continued, "is not a theft. It is a trick. And the person who did it is not the young woman you are so eager to blame." Alistair's face twisted in anger. "Act 3. I don't care who you are. This doesn't concern you." Dr. Vered took a step closer, her eyes never leaving his. "On the contrary, Mr. Draven, it concerns me very much." She turned to face the whole room. Her voice carried across the restaurant with the clear authority of someone used to being listened to. "I have been sitting at that corner table since before you arrived. I watched every moment of tonight's events. I can tell you exactly what happened to your credit card." She pointed toward Alistair's table, where his jacket hung neatly on the brass hook beside the booth. "When you ordered that 1997 Chateau Margaux," she said, "you took your wallet out of your jacket pocket. You looked at the card, as though you wanted everyone to see it, then put it back in your wallet. Then you placed the wallet back into the inside pocket of that jacket, hanging right there." Every head in the restaurant turned toward the jacket. Alistair's mouth opened, then closed again. His face went red. A vein pulsed visibly on his temple. Dr. Vered continued, her tone almost gentle now, like a teacher correcting a student. "The card never left your possession, Mr. Draven. This young woman never touched your belongings. The only thing she did was respond to your cruelty with intelligence and grace. And apparently, that was enough to make you want to destroy her." Joran Kale moved quickly to the jacket. He reached inside the pocket and pulled out a black leather wallet. He opened it carefully, and there, gleaming in its slot, was an AMX black card with Alistair Draven's name embossed in silver. The silence that followed was absolute. Then whispers spread through the restaurant like wildfire. People pulled out their phones, which had been recording Eliana, and now turned them toward Alistair, capturing his embarrassment from every angle. The story had changed completely. Alistair was no longer the victim. He was now the villain. Alistair lunged toward Joran. "Give me that," he shouted. "It proves nothing. She could have put it back when no one was looking." Dr. Vered shook her head slowly. "Mr. Draven," she said, her voice calm but firm, "I have been watching this young woman all evening. She has been nowhere near your jacket. The only person who touched that coat was you when you hung it up upon arrival." Her eyes narrowed. "What you have done tonight is not merely embarrassing. It is potentially criminal. Filing a false police report, defamation, attempting to use racial prejudice against an innocent woman. These are serious matters." Evans stepped away from the table. Her heels clicked sharply against the hardwood floor. Her face was pale. Her admiration for Alistair had disappeared, replaced by a cold and final judgment. "I've seen enough," she said, her voice flat and steady. Alistair reached for her arm. "Evans, wait. You don't understand. I was just—" She pulled away before he could touch her. "I understand perfectly, Alistair. I understand exactly who you are now." She walked toward the exit without looking back. Her designer dress swished with each deliberate step. Alistair stood frozen, watching her leave. For the first time that evening, he looked truly lost. A man whose money and status could not save him from the hole he had dug for himself. A man at a nearby table stood up, pulling a small notepad from his jacket pocket. "Mr. Draven," he said, "I'm Lucien Vale, reporter for the New York Times. Would you care to comment on what just happened here tonight?" The color drained from Alistair's face. He looked around at the recording phones, at the stares filled with contempt, at the complete collapse of everything he had built his identity upon. Without another word, he grabbed his jacket from the hook and strode toward the exit. His shoulders hunched, as if trying to make himself smaller. The door swung shut behind him, and he was gone. For a long moment no one moved. Then, slowly, an older gentleman who had raised his glass earlier began to clap. One by one, others joined in. Soon, the entire restaurant was applauding. Not polite, careful applause of high society, but true, heartfelt appreciation for what they had witnessed. Eliana stood in the middle of it, overwhelmed. Her hands were still trembling, though now from relief rather than fear. She felt tears threatening to spill over, but she held them back with sheer force of will. Joran approached her, his head bowed. Eliana, I am so sorry. I should have defended you. I should have trusted you. I was a coward and I have no excuse. Eliana looked at him for a long moment. 3 years of loyalty, and he had been ready to throw her to the wolves at the first sign of pressure. But she also saw the fear in his eyes, the weight of his own struggles. She knew what it was like to be trapped between impossible choices. I understand the position you were in, she said finally. But next time, remember that your employees are people too. We have families. We have dreams. We deserve to be protected, not sacrificed. Joran nodded, unable to meet her eyes. You're right. You're absolutely right. Dr. Vered appeared at Eliana's side, her expression warm for the first time that evening. She placed a gentle hand on the younger woman's shoulder. My dear, she said softly, why didn't you tell me about your situation? The night shifts, the financial pressure? I had no idea you were struggling so much. Eliana swallowed hard. I didn't want anyone to feel sorry for me, Professor. I wanted to earn my place. I wanted to prove I could handle everything on my own. Dr. Vered smiled, and there was something like pride in her eyes. That is precisely why I have always believed in you, Eliana. Your resilience, your determination, your refusal to ask for help. Even when you desperately needed it, these qualities will serve you well in academia. But from now on, let me help. You don't have to carry this alone. She reached into her purse and took out a business card. There's a job open, the older woman said. It's a teaching assistant job in my department. The pay isn't very high, but it's enough to cover your costs. You won't have to work such long, hard hours. And I know a foundation that helps students with money problems when their family is sick. I will personally recommend you. Eliana looked at the card in her hand. After everything that happened tonight, this little piece of paper felt like a rope thrown to someone who is drowning. Professor Vered, I don't know what to say. The older woman patted her arm. Say yes. Say you'll let me help you finish what you started. Your thesis about Latin and how it influenced Renaissance books is too important to stop because of things you can't control. Eliana nodded, her voice not trusting her own words. Around them, the restaurant was slowly getting back to normal. People were paying their bills and whispering about what they had seen, already thinking about the stories they would tell. Eliana knew that by tomorrow, everyone would be talking about tonight on social media, in news articles. Even though most people wouldn't know her name, they would remember what she did. She went to the employee locker room one last time. Her hands were steady now as she untied her apron and folded it neatly, putting it on the counter where she had always put it before. She opened her locker and pulled out her worn copy of Cicero's letters, running her fingers over the familiar cover. Joran appeared in the doorway. Eliana, if you ever need anything, a reference, a recommendation, anything, please don't hesitate to ask. She tucked the book under her arm and gave him a small nod. Thank you, Joran. Take care of yourself. She walked through the kitchen, past the servers and cooks who had seen what happened and were now looking at her with new respect. Navarra grabbed her hand as she passed. Girl, that was the most amazing thing I've ever seen. You're a legend. Eliana squeezed her friend's hand quickly and kept walking toward the back exit. She stepped outside into the cool Manhattan night. The city was alive with lights, taxis, honking, and distant laughter. Life never stopped here. For a moment, she just stood and took a deep breath, letting the night air fill her lungs. Above her, the sky was clear for once, with a few stars shining through the city lights. She thought about her father, who had died too soon, and wondered if he could see her now. She thought about her mother, who was in the hospital fighting her own battle. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out and read the message from the hospital. Update on patient Morrow. Condition stabilized. The doctor is happy with progress. We'll call tomorrow with details. Eliana closed her eyes and let herself feel one small moment of real relief. When she opened them again, she was smiling, not the fake smile she always gave to customers, but a real one from deep inside. She began walking, leaving the fancy restaurant behind her. The streetlights made long shadows on the pavement, and somewhere far away, a saxophone played a sad but beautiful tune. She didn't know exactly what tomorrow would bring, But for the first time in a long time, she felt hope. Tonight, words had been used to hurt her, but in the end, they had made her strong. Alistair Draven had tried to show that she didn't belong in his world, but instead, he had shown that his world wasn't worthy of her. Aeliana Morrow walked into the night with her head held high, carrying only a worn book of Latin letters and the knowledge that no one, no money, no power, no prejudice, could ever take away who she really was. And that's Aeliana's story. Here's what I hope you remember. Your worth is never about what others think of you. Not your job, not your money, not what people assume about you. What really matters, your knowledge, your dignity, your character. Those are things no one can take away unless you let them.